welcome from the studios of WSWA TV, right here in the heart of the 72nd Annual Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America Convention and Exposition. I'm Xania Woodman, Senior Editor of Vegas 7 Magazine in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here in Orlando with John Beaudette, President and CEO of MHW Limited. Hi, how are you doing?
Very well, Xania, thank you.
Wonderful, great to have you.
My pleasure.
So, to get us started, I understand that you have actually been attending this conference for literal decades. Is that true?
Actually, it is true, and it's a scary thought. But yes, I recall my first WSWA convention was in around 1987, 88. I was a young controller, and I was at that time working with the Xania Import and Marketing Company. But I understood very early the importance of this convention and what it means to brands. So yeah, I do go that far back, and I guess some of it shows on my face.
Not at all. Talk a little bit, if you will, about the transition to being a licensed service provider.
Well, back around mid-1990s, Xania was sold by the company at that time, and we had transitioned the company into a new service model. We had anticipated a consolidation in the industry, and we wanted to create a platform for new brands to make it into the United States. And so we did start that around 1995, 96. And it answered a strong need this industry had, and it's grown quite well, probably well beyond I ever thought at the time when we started it.
Now, I've noticed that you have a very big presence at the show. Can you elaborate for me a little bit about the types of clients you have and the services you offer?
Yeah, you know, when we first started out, the goal was to help new brands get into the market, and that really is what we're known for. But over time, what happened was a lot of brands that were in distribution, and some of the most famous global brands around, looked at the system and said, hey, it's an efficient model, let's see if I can work with them and maybe reduce some overhead and so forth. So we have a tremendous cross-section of very large players and small. But the other thing about it is that we've helped some big companies in transitional modes, Seagram's at one time, Proximo for a couple of years where we handled their brands during a couple-year period. So we've been blessed to be able to work with exciting brands, both well-known, established, and then the new players.
Now, as you've mentioned, MHW really services some of the industry's leading brands. I'll just name a couple: Chopin Vodka, Rum Chata, Lucas Bowles, Macallan Scotch Whiskey. But also there's some new players like Blue Chair Bay and other newcomers. Can you talk about the value in attending WSWA for clients, but also clients thinking about entering the market?
Sure. Well, as you walk around, you'll see a lot of those brands are well represented here. The newer brands would be in our major suite. We'd have about maybe the equivalent of 22 booths for new brands right next door, and then throughout the building, the complex, many of these players have their own suites and so forth. So it's kind of a neat cross-section. We're very honored to be sort of the back office service provider to the brands you mentioned, but we treat the big players and the small players the same. To us, they're clients. We don't own or market our own brands. Our job is to put them in a position to sell as many cases as possible, and then we all win. But I do consider it an honor to be associated with some of the names you mentioned, and a lot of the names that are not on there, but are on our website. So we're proud of all of our clients.
Excellent. Now, I know you do a lot of speaking engagements, both around the US and also internationally, mostly about the three-tier system. Can you explain a little bit about that for people who are not familiar?
Sure. You know, when you look globally at beverage alcohol, the United States has its unique three-tier system, different from other countries. So I do spend a lot of time doing seminar work, sometimes at the request of other governments. This year, for example, I was in Ireland speaking at the request of the Irish government to their distillers and brewers that want to access America. I'll be going over to Australia in September, work closely with Italy. The goal there is to try to explain to them, take a little bit of the complexity in their mind out of the way, because really the American market, with the importance of a three-tier system, is not as hard to navigate as people think, as long as you have the right roadmap. And that's sort of what we provide, is that roadmap and the tools and systems to help do that.
And where do you see the future of the US market going? What challenges are ahead of us?
Well, the biggest challenge is that there are thousands of new products entering the market every year. Reason being, there are millions of consumers looking for new products. And so it's a balance. How do you get the new products into that system that we have, the three-tier system, and get them out on the other end to the consumers? And I think the three-tier system has proved over time to be very flexible. and it can be modified. And I talk a lot often about the modified three-tier system, where yes, there can be some direct-to-consumer wine sales or craft programs in states and so forth that make it a little easier for these players to get to market. But at the end of the day, the three-tier system will stand. It'll just move as the market dictates and so forth. So I think it's showing its flexibility as time goes on.
Now, last year when you spoke at the Wine and Spirits Daily Summit, you gave some projections on the industry that were, on the volume standpoint, that were a little bit bullish. So I wanted to check back with you and find out, how do you feel now about those predictions, and are you still bullish?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm 1 year into it. I am very bullish on the future of consumption, both at beer, wines, and spirits. There's a lot of blurring these days. People are jumping from one category to another. I might have been a little aggressive, some could argue, but as we move out of the recessionary environment we've been in, you'll start to see growth rates go beyond the 2 to 2.5% you've seen for wine and spirits last year. I think we'll get back to the 3 to 4% very shortly. Some of this also has to do with the economic recovery and who's prospering. Right now, premiumization has been really where a lot of the action is on the high end, but I think the middle class and some of the economic reforms are taking more time than anyone thought to get those folks more involved. And so we need to make sure that policies, not to get political down in Washington, make their way to the middle class and get them back with spending power that they need, and so that they can join in on some of those products that some of the higher end, maybe the more wealthier consumers are enjoying today. So that's what our government needs to work on, and we'd welcome that.
Well, thank you for addressing that question. Tell me, if you would, a little bit more about MHW as a company.
Well, again, our corporation goes back to 1934, one of the first companies after Prohibition. And then, as I talked about before, we modified the model in the mid-90s and created the service model. And what I'm most proud about is the 105 employees that we have. We're among the most diversified companies in terms of personnel, because we deal with close to 100 countries. And so besides all the domestic products we work with, bringing products from these different countries, wine, spirits, and beer, I think we enjoy that kind of relationship between languages and being able to communicate with these folks and assist them and help them to thrive. Because at the end of the day, our goal is, again, I mentioned it before, maximize the value and the volume of those brands. And that's really what it's all about. And we truly believe in the American market as being number one. And that's the position all of our 105 employees take, is to make sure MHW helps those clients get to reach their ultimate targets and goals.
So what sort of strategic initiatives is MHW currently involved in?
That's a good question. I mean, a lot of our investment right now is going into technology. In the last couple of years, we've been very proud. We've introduced our own compliance system from scratch to replace the one that we had for a number of years, and we had scanned the whole industry, so we know we have the best there. And also our client reporting website, which is so critical, with its dashboards and graphics and all that. Again, state of the art. That was introduced about a year ago. And in the future, right now, we've got a multi-million-dollar investment on ERP, a new ERP system, working with a globally a software company that's operating throughout the world, that's going to secure our future for the next 5 to 10 years. The goal being that as technology changes, we want our platform to move with it, and cloud-based approaches seem to be the way to go. Lastly, I would just bring up big data. We've embarked on a project with another big data firm, marketing firm in New York City, to assist our clients in identifying where are the best places to take your goods on test marketing and so forth. So it's a matter of basically taking social information, social media data, and bringing it in a format where it can help clients select and choose where they may be most successful when they introduce brands.
And on that note, final question for you today, because I know you have a lot to do. What advice would you have for brands who are wanting to get into the market and get attention?
Well, I think right here is a great place to start. The WSWA convention, as I said, I go back many years with it. Not only is it really a program for displaying products, but the knowledge you can get in a couple of days walking around and talking to people, some of whom have been through the process, some are actually in the middle of the process today. The learning is really incredible, very hard to measure, but you can spend a lot of money in America. That's one thing America is good at, is taking money and putting it to use. The goal here when people come is that you can take information in a very short period of time, and people love to share their stories. And so you learn from others some of the mistakes they made. Most people here are honest and they'll tell you what went right and what went wrong. And so you don't want to replicate some of those errors. So doing your homework starts here at WSW. After that, it's a matter of getting out there in the marketplace and understanding that the American market is unique. No matter how successful you may have been in another country, when you look at America, understand that it's going to be a little bit different, but use these resources starting with the WSWA show and companies like ourselves that are out there providing services, and third-party marketers around the country that do a great job as well, helping new brands come to market.
I think that's just a wonderful assessment, so thank you for wrapping that up for me, and thank you for taking the time out of your convention to come and talk to us.
Xania, it was my pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned to WSWA TV.